video. I had someone comment on a video of mine that they wanted to see me make a summoner, and I figured that that would be a fine thing to do. So today, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be making a Anima Beyond Fantasy Summoner using the core rulebook and the Arcana exit. Now, I've already explained summoning in a previous video, but uh, for those who want a more in-depth view of how to make a summoner, this is the video for you. So there's a lot of ways we can make a summoner, and I'm going to go to their specific sections in Arcana Exit to go through the kinds of summoner we can make. Uh, uh, there are, I guess, two flavors, though, that Anima gives it. There are Invokers, and then there are normal summoners. Invokers do not summon creatures per se, but they invoke things and aspects of things. These come in the play in the These come into the form of the minor powers, who are they're kind of like Arcana, but a bit weaker in theory. These are similar to the Arcana in the core rulebook, which I'll go through as well. And they offer you packs in exchange for you going on strange quests. For example, Enamon over here, who is a great beast who does the music, wants you to be praised by 1,000 individuals for your musical or poetical skills. And then they give you a cool ability for people to be compelled to listen to your orders within a certain range of you. You know, stuff like that. The downside to these kind of Arcana-esque invocations is they do not scale very well. Incarnations are similar. You don't need to go on packs for them. You just need to know these people exist in the world. These are lore characters who are quote-unquote heroes who you get bonuses to your summoning skill for being similar to them. So if you want to be Linkates, the shadow who brings death, you get the, if you want to do it well and not have to be too powerful for summoner to do it, you want to be female, have a high style skill, be attractive, be a rebel, hate wizards, you know, all the good shit. And the way they work is they're one of the few things that summoners have that are level gated. So, in order to invoke the minor affinity of Link's Cates, you have to at least be level 4. And then to get to the next tier of it, you have to be level 8. That's how these incarnations don't exactly scale well. If you only wanted to use one, from levels 5 to 7, you basically don't become any more powerful until 8, and then you'd be capped out at 12 later on. Luckily, there are enough incarnations to bridge the gap in between, to allow you to incarnate as multiple people to either use their secondary abilities, which you get a bunch of all of them usually, or use their combat abilities to fight your foes. Beyond that, this is probably the most easy form of summoning, because all you need is the summoning skill, and then you roll against difficulty, spend this much Zeon, and then you get all this. It's very straightforward, very self-explanatory. If you want to be a summoner, but you don't want to actually worry about pets, this is the way you go. No pets required, and it's fairly potent. There are limits. There are hard limits though to your power, unfortunately. But this is a nice side route to go down. I feel if you want to be a real invoker who also uses the Arcana, because if you specialize as a summoner to being an invoker, you get to cut the Zeon cost in half for all these abilities. And then the other additional form of summoning, or it's not even really a form of summoning. This is like a little side thing you can do as a summoner. Uh, you can get an advantage to have one of these, or you can just summon one yourself as a summoner. This is like summoning a familiar out of your soul using a part of yourself to create it. They're more difficult to summon and cost 10 times the amount of Zeon to produce. And you can also do it on other people, but it's even more difficult for them. So the other person has to basically also be a wizard or have enough Zeon to pay the price. Beyond that, the summon and bind it. So to be a Sheely summoner, you better have summon and bind. And generally, you can only have one. Beyond that, when you make your Sheely, you roll a d100 to see what element it is, and then you pick your flavor from there. If you are going for just having one, familiar that you want to be very personal to you, this is a pretty good way to go. They have something called a soul form, which is their ability to basically go have a magical girl transformation to become more powerful and to be a much more potent summon on the field. But generally, they're basic little fairies with esoteric abilities and powers, which allow them to do mundane stuff or shoot people with abilities. They're not like super powerful, but they're pretty good. They're useful. They give you a lot of support and utility, and they're a good way for summoners to get access to spell-like abilities, basically. But we're gonna make a character who could go into all of these facets of summoning potentially. We want to make a good generalist summoner. So before we start with like their step with everything, let's make the character. Uh, so I'm not gonna roll stats. I'm going to use a method of creation from the GM toolkit where we have what are called 55 stat points to distribute among our characteristics. So this is basically a point by character, and we have a total of 55 stat points to put around. We can't use advantages that set our stats to 9, but we can use ones that increase our stats by 1 still, as my own rule. So we want all of our stats to start at a base of 5, I feel. I don't want to make, I'm not making a min-max character, I'm making a very balanced character, so everything's 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 40 of our points spent. We have 15 left to improve our stats. So the only stat that actually matters for a summoner is the power stat, actually. So if I wanted to just be mega powerful, I would just raise this immediately to 10. And I'm going to limit myself to only having a 10 as my stat. I'm going to make like I said, I'm a normal character, so I have 10 power. I want to know about creatures, so I'm going to put 3 points in intelligence, giving me an 8. Agility and dex are pretty good, so I'm going to get those up to 8 as well. And I have 4 points left. I don't care about strength. I don't really care about perception. I really don't care about willpower. So I don't want to die, so I'll just have Nikon. With these stats, the reason I picked them like this was so I have the high agility and dexterity, so my initiative's okay. I want the high agility so I can move fast, and dexterity will be a good skill for our defensive ability. As a summoner, we're still going to want to use dodge, unfortunately. If we're an invoker, there are invocations that give us a magical shield, but those are unreliable. We can avoid getting the dodge ability, and maybe I'll even go that route and not get any defensive ability at all, and rely on our summoned creature to defend us instead. So that's what we've got going for us so far. We have 10 power. This is purely for Zeon recovery rates and for MA. And as you level up as a character, we'll put all of our stat points into power. Intelligence is purely so I can put points into the occult skills, so I can know more about supernatural creatures in game and in character, so I can learn more about them and summon them. So that's all of our stat points spent. We spent all 55 of them. Cool. Let's talk about advantages now, that we know what our stats are. Any stat roll can be good for a summoner, by the way. The only stat that really needs to be a good stat is the power stat. So, as a summoner, most of these common advantages aren't all that actually amazing for us. We could get more stat points, which are just generically good. We get an artifact, but we're talking about, like, strategy, or we're making the best possible summoner without, like, gimping our stats. So making a good summoner who has the good summoner advantages, which means we should look at magical advantages. Now, there is a limitation on... Oops, I zoomed in way too much there. Now, there's a stipulation for mystical advantages. We can't buy them unless we have the gift, which is a 2 CP advantage. Now, we have no intention of casting spells. We are looking... The advantage we specifically want to get as a summoner is... Superior Magic Recovery, which multiplies how much we regenerate our Zeon. This will allow us to skip out on buying magical regeneration multiples, and using our DP on more useful things instead, by getting super magical regeneration. We're making an all-rounder summoner, though. There is another advantage in this book, actually, we might want instead, if we want to go for a summoner. In fact, there's 2 advantages in this book. We want the incomplete gift first off, because this will allow us to buy magical advantages and save 1 CP to do it, basically. And we can technically cast spells of it, but I wouldn't recommend it. If we want to go with Sheely's, we can go with Sheely Essence, which just makes our Sheely more powerful. It gives it 2 extra attunements. We go into mass summoning, which I'll tell you right now, mass summoning, you need to make a very specific character around that. You would put all 3 of your CP into mass summoner, because at level 1, you can't actually mass summon creatures without that advantage. And mass summoning, to be honest, I wouldn't recommend it, except for as a gimmick character. So like I said, we're making an optimal summoner, more or less, so we're going to skip that, but that's a good, side choice. And then the familiar advantage. We're going to take this advantage as well. We're only going to spend 2 CP on it, though. So we need 1, 2... and this will be optimal. We need 5 total creation points. So for our advantages, we're taking the partial gift. We're taking familiar. And we're taking improved... Is it called improved magical recovery? It's called superior magic recovery, okay. And we're taking superior magic recovery. So partial gift costs us 1, this costs us 2, and this costs us 3. Because we're going super optimal, so 3, 5, 7. We have 3, so we need to get 4 CP back for disadvantages. So we're, like I said, this is an optimal character. If you don't want to get this many disadvantages, I'd recommend cutting back on superior magic recovery, because you're going to buy some recovery multiples for recovering your Zeon later. I'm just showing you, alright, this is I'm min-maxing in advantages, basically, is what I'm showing here. So, if we want to get 4 CP with disadvantages, so these count as magical disadvantages that we're buying. So we need to get magical disadvantages to allow us to basically pay for them. So we're going to be a real cheeky motherfucker, because we can. So this advantage, it gives us, it's changed in the core exit rules, because this is a different, actually, spellcasting school. I think there's a similar advantage, though, that basically makes it shitty. So what we're going to take for our disadvantages is we're going to take shamanism. Actually, I'm going to check, because it says, here or something about how shamanism is, removed or different. Maybe it's in the theorem of magic. Let's double check. I'm a little curious. I don't want to cheat. I don't want to make an illegal character. So shamanism is different, as you can see. Huh. Maybe it's in Core X, it changes. I can't remember. I'm just gonna take it anyways. No, I'm not gonna take it, because I know it's changed somewhere, and I don't feel like looking for the document where it's changed. So it won't be that. But we're going to take Magical Ties, because we're not going to cast spells anyways, but we can take it because we have the gift. And we're going to be a mystical class, so we can just take it. This is a pretty cheesy way of getting your CP. Let's see, what's another good one? Because Shamanism would be a bit of 2 CP, it'd be really nice. I have to take a 2 CP disadvantage somewhere. You know what? I'd recommend looking at the core exit rule changes before taking this, but Shamanism. I believe it makes it so that your spellcasting is just worse. And make it safe to get material components. So I'm taking it under the pretense that I don't know what this thing is, and this would be a pretty big disadvantage. So our character's very bad at casting spells, and will requires gestures too. So just to make sure, we have 3 CP as a character. So we have 3, 5, 6 in cost. So you need to pay for back in 3. Well, actually, we don't even need required gestures. You know what? I'll take a different 1-point disadvantage, just so I'm not make sure I'm not cheating. I missed the math on there. So I'll just take oral requirement as well on top of that. Just some advantages that won't really impact us, because these don't matter at all for summoning. We're not going to get magic levels, we're not going to be casting spells, and we're not going to be casting spells. So we have our advantages picked out, we have all of our not bad disadvantages picked, so now we're ready to make the character. So I'm just going to slide in all of the modifiers for these stats real quick that have the modifiers. cool. Everything else is at a 0. Excellent. Oh, those are the actual zoop-de-boobs. I misread that. I'm a silly bean. I'm just doing this to this sheet. It has some autofilling aspects of it. Just so the autofill aspects do their job for me. Not that I really need them, but, you know, it's nice for demonstration purposes and to show how this sheet would work if you were to use it yourself. Alright, perfect. So, everything's done in that regard, so let's pick our class. We're a summoner, we're gonna pick summoner, spoiler. We could pick freelancer, but I wouldn't recommend it if you can just be a summoner. So we're just gonna go right to the summoner page. Oops, a bit too close. So this is the summoner, and this is what they get per level. As you can see, their health and martial knowledge and stuff is very low. They can get the dodge skill, as you can see. And if you want to play a very safe character, you would grab the dodge skill. But we're power gamers. We ain't afraid of not having a dodge skill. We ain't getting a dodge skill. Now, if you're playing a character you want to be a bit on the safe side, I'd recommend investing 25% of your development points into the dodge skill, just straight up. And then you'd put 60% in your supernaturals, and then you'd only put 20% at that point, or 15% or something like that, into your secondary abilities. But no, we're going 60-40 is our split. 60 into this, 40 into those. And as a fun note, our occult is 1-1. That's very important. So let's put in our class bonus real quick. So we get... So all of our class bonuses are to these summoning skills, and 5 magical appraisal, 10 occult. Since we took the gift, even the minor version, magical appraisal is actually a useful skill for us. So we'll put boop there, and we'll go boop there. Those are our secondary abilities. And then we're going to scroll down on this sheet to the summoning section. Is it past equipment? It might be past the equipment. We're at magic. I think next one is summoning. Is there not? Or is it in the magic section, I wonder? It must be. There's invocations there. I must have just skipped over it. Yep, it's right there. So we get the class bonus of 10 to every summoning skill. As you can see, all of our summoning skills are based on power, except for control, which is based on willpower. Now you might say, Dell, we only have 5 willpower. That means we don't get a class bonus to this, but we do get a class bonus of 15 to all these. We're not going to worry too much about the control skill when it comes to min-maxing of our stats. We're just going to put more DP into it. So I'm going to explain what all 4 summoning skills do now, so we can understand how we're going to spend our DP, because we're just going to do that right now. We also get 50 Zeon per level from our class. So I'll put that there right now, too. So, the summon skill is very self-explanatory. It allows you to summon creatures. Pretty good, right? That's all it does. Lets you summon creatures. The control skill allows you to bend creatures to your will and control them with your supernatural power. Oh, sorry, I forgot something about the summoning skill. I better go back. The summon skill is also the skill you use for invocations, incarnations, and all that jazz. So if you're an invoker, the only one of these summoning skills you care about is the summon skill itself. Bind allows you to bind creatures to items with high presence to, like, sort of Pokeball style. It's also the skill you use when making familial bonds with creatures. Banish is self-explanatory. It makes all the bad monsters disappear. So, like I said, we're spending 60% of our 600 development points, which is 360 development points. We're not specializing. Like I said, we're a generalist summoner. So, we want to get some Zeon, and we want to get some MA. So, our special is that we have 1, 2, 3. We have ×4 MA recovery right now. ×4. That means we recover 4 times as much Zeon per day. Our base MA is 10, and we have a single multiple at level 0 for free. So that means our current final MA... This, by the way, this is purely for recovery, not for your actual magical accumulation. So our MA right now would be 10, in brackets 40 recovery. I'll put rec, or rec. for it. So we would only charge up 10 Zeon per turn, but we recover 40 per day. Pretty good. We're gonna buy a few more of these multiples. We want to be able to make sure we have full Zeon every day, basically, and that we can very freely banish, control, and bind stuff whenever we choose to. Or if we want to, we might dip into Incarnation at some point, and that'll be more important later. So how are we gonna split up this DP? Because we have, like I said, 360 to spend, and we gotta buy some Zeon too. So the best way to figure out how we want to spend our DP is we're gonna go. Actually, we already know they're all 1-to-1, by the way, for this character, for their summon, control, bind, banish. Just pointing that out there right now. Very important. So we're gonna head over to the summoning section, and we're a level 1 character. So if we want to summon stuff with the rule 160, that's a big number to roll. Like really, like that's at level 1. That's a high number result to get for most characters. Now we can get bonuses summoning by taking more time, and if we take like an hour or a day, we can get like a plus 40. Okay, so more like if the rule 120. So we should have around 80 to 100 summoning to summon level 0 or level 1 creatures pretty regularly. We need a summoning of 200, or a result of 200 to control them. That's really hard. We need 180 to bind them, and 120 to banish them. As you can tell, banishing is dirt easy. Everything else, not so much. So if we only put 80 in all of them, we could summon stuff, we could really control stuff, and we could kind of bind stuff. It would be very difficult. And we would need to go down to this chart over here, where we would need to invest in a ritual to summon, control, bind, banish, which is fine. We're not mass summoning, so we don't care about doing everything at the flip of the hat. We are a guy who prepares for a battle by summoning his minions and then controlling them. So we're going to assume that anything that we summon, we're going to summon at least 24 hours in advance and keep as our companion. And keep in mind, we have a level 1 familiar who's with us at all times. As our familiar. So this creature has already been summoned, controlled, and bound to us. So we don't have to worry about that one. This is for additional things we'd like to summon. Now, we also want some Zeon, and we also want some MA. Tough thing to balance, level 1. Summoners are a bit risky at level 1, I will tell you, and warn you. Because if you fail those rules, your character can very easily and randomly die. So, how are we going to do it? So, regeneration multiples are the MA multiple cost divided by 2, so 30 for one of them. We're just going to buy 2 of them. 3. So now our base MA is 30, but we recover like 120 per day. That's plenty. We don't need any more than that. So you've spent 90 DP. I might get like one less of those if I don't like what I'm going with. 90 on MA. And we want like Zeon as well. I'm gonna have a base of a couple hundred Zeon from my power score, which I'll figure out later. I'm just gonna buy like 50 Zeon right now. I kind of want to have around about 400 or 500 Zeon. So, whipping out my calculator real quick, which you probably can't see because it's not being reported in the window. We have 90 plus 50, so we spent 140. So you have 220 Zeon, DP left to spend across our skills. So, we already have Familiar, and we can only have one right now. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 100 into Summoning, and I'm going to put like 120 into Control. And I'm not going to get Bind yet, and I'm not going to get Banish yet. The reason I'm not getting Banish is because I'm an asshole summoner, and I don't care about banishing stuff. I want to control them. If I need to do something to them, I'd rather control them. That's a much more powerful move for me. I don't want to bind them. I'll just have to write in my backstory that I didn't bind my own familiar. That's my parents bound it to me instead. And I haven't learned how to bind stuff yet. I don't feel like Pokeballing stuff. And I'm just going to make sure my familiar can either pass as a weird pet or a human or something. and try and hide it in plain sight. I'll put a bit more into control because I don't have a good bonus to it like I do with my other abilities, and it's a bit more difficult than summoning. Cool. So now if I spend an hour on a day on a ritual, I'll have 165 to my summon and 170 to my control. So as long as I roll a 10 on my dice or higher, I can summon and control level 1 creature. That's perfect. That's all I need. I am now officially a summoner. Very quick. I am gonna go back to the magic section to double check what my Zeon is. My base Zeon. So I have 10 power, so I have 135 base Zeon. Actually, I'll put the 250 here, and I'll put 135 here. That's my actual base Zeon. So that's 185 plus 250. Yeah, I have 435 Zeon. Perfect, that's a lot of Zeon for level 1. Or not a lot, it's enough. That means we can summon and control pretty easily. And still have plenty of Zeon left. And we can pay our maintenances no problem on the familiar that we have. So perfect. We spent most of our DP. We'll spend the other 40% of that, which would be 240, I believe, right? Let me double check. Yeah, so I have 240 to spend on my secondary abilities. So let's scroll on up. So our cult, as you saw earlier, is 1-1. And I think the rest of our supernatural stuff is like 2-1, I think. Let's check. Yeah, our cult is 1-1, and our intellectual is 2-1, and yeah, okay, perfect. That's all you know. So I'm just gonna straight up put 100 DP into occult. Just doing that right away. That's 100 of it gone. I'm gonna keep track of it like right here for now. I'm gonna put 50 into magical appraisal. It's not my best skill, but it's a skill I got, so we'll invest into it. And then I'm gonna put some points in a notice because it's an important skill. I'm gonna put 50 in that too. So that is 50 more gone, putting me up to 200 in total that I've spent. And the last skill I'm gonna get is persuasion, which I'll put the 40 into, giving me a total of 20 persuasion. I'm getting persuasion because since I'm going to be dealing with a lot of weird supernatural creatures in my life, I want to be prepared to be able to convince them to join me without necessarily using the control skill. And I want to be able to roleplay my encounters with them in a way so that I can potentially convince them with a good deal instead of just wasting my Zeon and not having them connect to me. I do have a natural bonus at level 1 that I get to use. I'm going to put it into my persuasion. So I'm going to put a 1 here to indicate I put my natural bonus there. And increase my bonus from plus 10 to plus 20. Giving me a total of 40. Cool, and those are my secondary abilities. So I'm going to go back to I like keeping track of how I spend my DP. So I'm just going to go back down here to here. So I put 360 DP on Supernatural. These smaller numbers don't matter anymore. So now I know I have 240 on my secondaries, 360 on my Supernaturals. Perfect. Now, we're not quite done yet. We still have a familiar we bought. So, let's see. I think that she has a section for my familiars. Yes, here we go. Creatures bound, we have a level 1 familiar. Perfect. So, there's not many level 1 monsters in the core rulebook, so we're going to go down into those who walked amongst us, and we're going to see what we have for level 1 monsters. And we can use this book by just going to its second appendix. And our selection for level 1 monsters is not the best. In fact, we have 2 we could summon. And we go up to the level 2 monsters, we're also, we got 2 more we could summon? See, this is the tough thing about being a summoner is that our early game selection is not so good for what we can summon. Uh, if anything, we want a level 3 monster. That's when we start getting to the familiars who are super useful to us, who we want. A familiar with spell casting would be perfect. And I don't believe in the core rulebook either if we have a level 1 monster we could legally summon as a creature. That's level 1. That would be useful to us. I'm looking... Oh, it's over here, Creature Compendium. I don't think there's anything at level 1 that we can just summon. Yeah, no, I don't believe so at all. Now, since Anima's monster selection is limited, that forces us to make a level 1 creature to summon. In this case, though, I would recommend as a DM, if you're DMing a summoner who wants to do this kind of build, as the DM, you should ask the summoner what kind of creature they want, and perhaps there's some very important things they need. In this case, we need a wizard familiar who can cast magical shields. That's what we really need for this build to work. So we have a level 1 wizard familiar is our build. If you wanted to do this build and not have to make a custom monster, I would recommend for this build to look into... You want a succubus, actually. I believe you want the daughter of Lilith, to be precise. I saw them. Yeah, you want one of these bad boys. Yeah, you want the daughter of Abriel. They're illusionists with 130 defensive magical projection. This is like the familiar you'd get. So if you were asking a DM what you'd want, I'd ask for a level 1 version of a daughter of Abriel. So you would just reverse engineer this, reduce their DP expenditures down a bit for their Zeon and stuff to make them match up with level 1 creatures. And that's what I would do. That's the creature I'd make. And I'd summon. They use illusion magic, but they have enough fit that they'd have access to a magical shield. And the way the build would work, with your level 1, like, spellcaster, and a good way to simulate those stats as well if you want to, like, keep things fairly balanced, is you can go down to common characters, and I'm pretty sure there is a level 1, like, wizard, wizard's apprentice over here. I would just take, I won't lie, this stat block is pretty bad for level 1. I would take this stat block right here, though. And in fact, for the example, I will just take this stat block. Obviously, the creatures you summon will have better stats than this, so what I would do is take this stat block, put the succubus stats there, and reduce one stat by 1, because it's level 3, so it gain a stat point at some point, and just give it its levels on path. Maybe raise the magical projection up to, like, 75 or something, is what I'd go with if I was a DM just doing this. And this is the creature I would use, level 1 wizard. And what I would do is, they would be, to defend myself, is they, as a passive action, can just cast a magical shield on me when I'm about to get hit by stuff. And they'll just have that ready to go. And since you can do passive actions as long as you're not surprised, it won't be an issue. So this is our level 1 familiar that we will be using. Again, since summoners summon monsters, these stats should be a little bit higher. So I'll take this creature, and I'm going to slap down the stats for it somewhere. Where's a good place to slap them? I want to find a big... perfect. The character... Oh, I can't put it in the character illustration. Shit. There's no good place on this sheet to slap this stat block, unfortunately. But I would take that stat block, put it somewhere you won't lose. On a second sheet. That's where I'd slap it. And yeah, that'd be your summoned creature. Actually, these blocks expand? No. Not at all. There's my complaint for the sheet. There's not a good place to put the stats for your familiars. The last thing with the figure out is our daily Zeon maintenance for the creature as well. Because it's our familiar. So we have a level 1 creature as our familiar who uses these apprentice stat block for simplicity's sake. Though, like I said, I'd increase this by 15. increase their stats to match the succubus stats, give them the succubus secondary abilities and powers, and then keep the MA and Zeon at the same at level 60 on their path, probably. That'd be pretty accurate to what it would be at level 1, probably. And it is predisposed to defensive, so actually maybe like 60, it'd be 75 offensive and like 90 defensive, maybe. Up to you, though, as a DM. Like I said, if you are a summoner, I'd highly, highly recommend and encourage the DM to do the numbers for a custom creature for your summons. Because as a player, it's very tempting and easy to make a creature that is unbalanced and dumb. Whereas a DM, you can make a balanced creature that's useful and won't overshadow the efforts of other player characters. I haven't read over the familiar rules in a little bit, so I'm just double checking where it is. I think it might be a bit later in the book, actually. I think it's extra second called Familiar Bond. Oh, and this is the failure chart right here for when you fail any of your rolls. You don't want to fail these; they're really bad. Here we go. These are all the benefits of what you can do with your familiar. There's a lot of stuff, but basically, familiars level up alongside you. They You can cast spells through your familiar, but by doing so, you reduce your MA by half. Your familiar has a pool of Zeon, but it doesn't regenerate Zeon. It gets it from your regeneration. This is why I gave my character a high level of regeneration, so that they can feed their creature Zeon, basically, so they don't run out. When they get injured, they take a PHR check equal to twice the amount of damage it took, and if you fail, it's a minus 20 action to both of you. And if they fail by 50, you fall unconscious. Uh, if they die, you are likely to die as well. And then to maintain your bond, you must spend half the cost in Zeon points that would be required to keep a being at that level bound. Okay, so we're gonna scroll up to the chart for binding. So level 1, to bind a level 1 creature is 10. That means this creature would cost us 5 Zeon a day to maintain, or reduce our recovery by 5. So in reality, we actually only regenerate 115 Zeon. This cost is not optional, so we have to pay it. If we don't pay it, it will break the bond. Perfect. And yeah, that's how you make a summoner. It's really easy. With this character, we'd have a level 1 Wizard Familius at the beginning of the game who could protect us from all kinds of harm. We'd have an okay amount of Zeon, quite a lot of regeneration, and we'd be able to summon additional reinforcements whenever we need to, fairly easily. With the amount of Zeon we have, we could summon quite a lot of creatures. And yeah, no, that's how you make a summoner. There are other ways you could specialize into doing the Arcana and stuff, but this is a rather, like I said, a non-specialized summoner. So they can pivot themselves into any direction they want to as a summoner. They could go into Arcana, they could go into Incarnation, they could do everything. Uh, the only thing they can't do right now is they can't give other characters familiars and they can't banish creatures. But that's a sacrifice you unfortunately have to take when you're making a summoner who you want to be powerful. You could have a more even distribution of these skills, but you would end up being bad at all of them. I'd recommend, as you level up this character, you want to max out their summoning control first to 200 for your base. And then that's when you want to start investing in bind and banish. Is once you've maxed them out or gotten them to a point where you're comfortable. Like 150 in both of them would be pretty good too for a while, and then you can start just pumping into bind and banish instead. You're gonna want to have a really large Zeon pool, just so if you're doing a lot of stuff, you can still keep on going. Remember that at 50 Zeon, you start suffering from the negative effects having low Zeon, or sorry, less than 50, I should say. And technically, you can cast magic this character, but I would not recommend it. It is not what you want to do. And yeah, if you liked this summoner, you're more than welcome to take this build and use it. It's a completely legal build. All you need to have access to is the core rulebook and the Arcana exit book, and a DM that's willing to accommodate you. Again, before you make a summoner ever, no matter if it's this summoner or your own summoner that you're making, make sure to okay it with your DM first. Not because summoners are overpowered, but because they require a bit of extra work on the DM's part. Because it creates an NPC that your DM is forced to play all the time, so it's a good idea as a summoner if you're going to have a familiar off the hop, or if you're planning on getting one. Talk to your DM about it. Make sure they know what you want so that you can get it. If you don't say what you want, you won't get it probably. And yeah, that's how you make a summoner. I hope you enjoyed. If there are other builds you want to see me make, please comment on these videos, and I will happily make any Anima Beyond Fantasy character you want. I'll do it just like this, where I'll explain why I picked my things, and I'll probably make them all of like 55 point buy too, to show that they can be made, even with fairly average stats, you know? Like, these stats are pretty decent, but you can get a lot better stats by rolling 2d10, drop the lowest one. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a great day.